Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Evolution Podcast. I'm Leah Drew, your host and mind-body healing guide. This podcast is for the awareness seeker ready to go deeper, create change, and feel more empowered over their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. My intention is to be a catalyst for you as we explore topics surrounding holistic health, mindset optimization, trauma healing, emotional intelligence, and much more. I'm so grateful to have you here and to support you as we evolve in mind, body, and spirit. Let's breathe in and out. Now, let's dive in. Hey, you guys, before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to invite you to my upcoming free workshop. The Awareness Seeker Workshop is here to help you reflect on all that's happened over the past year of your life. It's here to help you get clear on your intentions and on the things that you're calling in for the upcoming year. And most importantly, it's here to support you in bringing awareness to the things that might actually hold you back from achieving all that you want this year. Often, our greatest hurdles aren't a lack of desire or ability, but actually the invisible chains of toxic patterns like recurring behaviors, negative thoughts, and self-limiting beliefs that subtly undermine our efforts to achieve all the things that we're ready for. Breaking free of these patterns is crucial for success and for abundance and for fulfillment in your life. So in this workshop, we will be illuminating these patterns and empowering ourselves to break free from them. And when you do this, you'll begin to notice that decisions start to become a little bit more clear. Goals feel a little bit more attainable. You might start to feel a whole lot more equipped for the journey ahead. And you'll often notice that life starts to feel just a little bit easier. So it's about choosing growth over stagnation. It's about choosing your potential over past limitations. And it's about rewriting the stories that are holding you back, that are keeping you stuck, and the stories that are likely saying you're not enough, and helping you through this workshop to rediscover the power that you hold to achieve all the things that you dream of and all the things that you're ready for this year. So come join the Awareness Seeker Workshop and let's turn the page on the past and identify the patterns that are holding you back so that you can step into the life that you are meant to live and that you are absolutely ready to experience. You can click the link in the show notes to join the Awareness Seeker Workshop January 2nd at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And you can always go back and rewatch it later because you'll get the recording. So I hope to see you there. Why would you not be? It's going to be fun. You get to hang out with me and an epic community that's also going to be present. So, all right, that's all I got for you. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Mindful Evolution Podcast. I am your host, Leah Drew, and today I have the beautiful, lovely Amy Natalie with me. And Amy is a wonderful friend of mine. She is also a women's empowerment coach, a feminine embodiment guide. She is the host of the Feminine Frequency podcast, and she is the author of The Feminine Way, her brand new book. I'm so excited for her. And Amy ignites women into their feminine power so that they can live a life of freedom, pleasure, fulfillment, and purpose, and emerge as the most authentic, confident, and self-expressed version of themselves. She also guides transformational spaces for women to experience radical healing and deep soul connection through her retreats, workshops, events, and group coaching programs, many of which I have had the pleasure of being part of. Amy, thank you for being here with me today.
It is such an honor. I was sharing before we went live that I'm so excited to be here with you. I absolutely love podcasting with people that I know personally because I feel like it allows us to really just drop into that extra layer of intimacy, of vulnerability, and that really allows listeners to get to know both of us more. So I'm grateful and honored to be here. And I just want to take a moment to celebrate you for starting this podcast. I remember when you shared that this was an idea that you had, and bringing that to fruition is, I know it takes a lot of courage and a lot of persistence and determination to make it happen. And here we are. We get to co-create some magic together. So thank you for having me.
I am so grateful that you've been a part of the journey and that you're now here. And you are definitely one of the first people that I was like, ooh, this podcasting thing feels good. After listening to your podcast and that being one of the initiators for me as I deepened my connection with my feminine and really allowed myself to open and surrender and just melt into my heart and allow myself to share that with others. So it is my pleasure, and thank you for being here. So with that being said, speaking of our heart space, what I would love to do as we dive into our conversation today and really open up to our listeners is drop us into just a little visualization, a little breath experience. There's a lot of pain, a lot of challenge, a lot of things that many people around us in the world are currently navigating in Israel and Gaza and in many other places in the world around us. So I'm going to ask you guys to join us as we close our eyes and place one hand on our heart. And just starting by taking a nice big deep breath into your belly and letting it go. And doing the same thing again, inhaling into your belly. And this time pulling that breath up into your heart space. Holding it there for a moment. And letting that breath go. Allowing yourself to soften in the chair beneath you. And as we breathe in this time, really focusing on bringing that breath right into the heart space. And just noticing what that heart space feels like today. As you take one more breath in, just softening into the love that you hold in that heart, that beautiful heart of yours. Thinking about the things in your life that you love, the things in your life that you're grateful for, and the things in your life that you don't have to worry about, that you don't have to think about, the safety that exists. And with all of that love, I want you to send it outwardly from your heart. And just sending it to those around you that may need a little extra love right now. Breathing in, and on that exhale, sending it a little bit further. One more inhale. And holding in your heart all that may need a little extra support as we slowly tune back into our bodies, back into the room, into the chair beneath us, and slowly coming back and opening your eyes when you're ready. Thank you for dropping into that with me.
Thank you for taking us there. Yeah, it's been a tender day as we're recording this. I woke up this morning with so much like sadness and grief in my heart, just feeling into the pain and suffering that is happening around the world right now. And yeah, also simultaneously feeling into the gratitude for my health and my safety. And yeah, sometimes it's hard for our minds to wrap around the trauma that exists in the world. And I also feel like that is such a huge reason why we're here and why we're offering this conversation is for personal liberation, personal healing, which I believe that's where it all begins when we can really work on our own trauma and our own pain, and we can transmute that and alchemize that and liberate ourselves from that. Then we can show up and offer our love and support and our gifts to the world. And so that's what we're here doing, you and I, and then everyone who's listening to this. Like we're all on the same trajectory. We're all on that path. So yeah, so powerful to be able to drop into our hearts in that way.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that that's needed more than anything right now in the world. And you bring up a really great concept of being with both, right? Being with the beauty and also being with the pain simultaneously, and being with the light and being with the dark, and being able to be with the gratitude and also being able to be with the challenge and the pain that exists in the world around us and even within us. And it really starts, in my opinion, within ourselves, is when you go within yourself and you really tap into that heart of yours and allow yourself to open it up, then the world around you can follow in your footsteps, can see you as a leader, can allow themselves to open their hearts. And there is a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of trauma, a lot of violence that we're seeing right now. And it's hard. It's hard to witness as someone, as I'm sure you can relate, that so deeply embodies that love and that compassion and that kindness, and wants nothing more than to see everyone be with that themselves.
Yeah, and what I find often on an individual and collective level is that sometimes we have these ruptures, these breakdowns, these really like massive crumblings before we have breakthroughs and before we have clarity and before we can really see a deeper connection to love and to truth. And yeah, my wish is that that's what's happening, if that's what this all means. And either way, I definitely feel like that is something that we can all keep tuning into whenever we're in that space of pain and challenged, knowing that that is always leading us to deeper understanding of ourselves and others, and leading us to greater expansion and more love.
Yeah, absolutely. Being with that pain in my journey has allowed me to be with more of that love. And kind of like the flower, right, that blooms and blossoms, and you have the flowers on the wall behind you, which I love as we're talking about this, right? It's like, in order to see that flower grow and bloom, you have to plant it. And to plant it, you have to get deep down in the ground, and you've got to get down into the dirt, into the soil, into that cool darkness that that is where that plant starts, where that roots can grow, where they can ground themselves so that they can grow outward and expand outwardly and grow and expand upwardly. So yeah, and excited to be here and dive into some things today that can support our women that are listening, and also the guys that are listening to this, to support them with understanding how to be with the both and how to be with those so that we can expand. And in your work, you primarily work with women. And I think that there's a lot that the men can take from this conversation so that they can really see a woman in her queen archetype, in that deep feminine essence, and understand how to hold better space so that the female can feel safe to be there. And so, with that being said, I'm curious for us to dive into really what it looks like for someone to be fully embodied in both their masculine energy and their feminine energy.
Mm. Yeah, I've been working with these two energies on a conscious level for the last 7 years. And it has been quite a journey of kind of a pendulum swing in a way of being hyper in my masculine energy, which, looks like being stressed and overwhelmed and anxious and depleted and feeling that on a physical and emotional level. And then swinging all the way to the other end of kind of really dropping into that feminine space of feeling a little bit more like floaty and ungrounded and unproductive and a little bit chaotic. And so really the journey has been kind of meeting both of those edges many, many times and learning how to come into a you could call it a balance or a center point. And it's always a dance between these two energies. I like to describe it as a dance. It's not a calculator thing where you just like plug in this equation and you're like, okay, I'm perfectly balanced between my masculine and my feminine energy, because that's not how life works. Everything's always evolving and changing. And so it's how can we, in an embodied way, be able to navigate and be able to meet the moment with whatever is necessary, whatever's needed for our highest good and for the highest good of all. And so this practice of tuning into being embodied in your masculine and feminine is about being in your body. It's not about over analyzing it or what do I need to do in order to be more feminine. And that's like the thing that I feel like people have such a hard time grasping, because especially in our culture, which is more of a patriarchal, capitalistic, consumerism society, we tend more towards this hyper masculine overdrive. And we've been doing this for thousands of years as a species. And now that we're in this time of the feminine rising, we're seeing a great shift and a great need for more feminine energy. And we see that because we see rising rates in fertility issues, in mental health issues, in chronic health issues, in chronic pain. And people are kind of getting to that place where, like, oh, I thought these were the things that were going to make me be successful and happy and feel fulfilled and all of those things. And we're like reaching these milestones and we're just like not feeling that way. So I feel like there's a returning that's happening to this balance within us and within the world around us. So I'll pause there and see if there's anything that you want to pull, because, I can go super deep down the rabbit hole in this, but I'm really excited about the time that we're living in, because this information is needed and this new way of living is needed, of living in harmony with our masculine and feminine. And the last piece there is like, what does that feel like? It feels like ease. It feels like vitality. It feels like pleasure. It feels like purpose, feels like leadership. Those are some of the things that I feel into when I'm embodied in both my masculine and feminine energy.
Mm. There's so many great things there to pull from. And yeah, I agree. We're totally living in a world that really drives us into that masculine that is so go, go, go. And I know you can understand this in some aspects, but like the East Coast can have this very like deep go, go, go energy to it. And it's one of the reasons why I shifted away from the East Coast and moved away, to find more of that flow and understand what that feels like. Because oftentimes when you're living in it, it can be hard to understand what it's like to live out of it. And I want to clarify here, when you're talking about the need for this feminine energy to be harnessed and to be embodied, you're speaking on all levels, men and women. You're not just speaking on women, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the way I like to describe what these two energies are, these energies have been around since the beginning of time. They are taught to us through yogic and tantric traditions. They're taught to us through Chinese traditions. And they are two energies that live within all living beings, and they live within nature as well, which is really cool to watch and to pay attention to. So some other words that we can use to describe these two energies is, you can think of masculine energy is like the Shiva energy, or it is like the yang energy. It's the fire energy. It's doing energy. That's the masculine. The feminine is more yin energy. It is more of the Shakti energy, and it's more flow and being. And so we actually need both of these energies. And like you said, it doesn't matter what gender you are, we have both of these energies within us. And depending on your constitution, you may be more masculine dominant or feminine dominant by nature. Doesn't matter what gender you are, you may lean towards one or the other depending on your soul and your personal authentic expression, which I think that we lose touch from because of how we're conditioned and how we're socialized. Because we are so socialized to ignore our emotions, we're socialized to not listen to our bodies. We're socialized to be in hustle mode and productivity mode. And we are socialized to not be sensitive, right? And that these are all ways that we all become disconnected from the sacred divine feminine energy.
Find when we're very disconnected from that, it makes it difficult to tune into that heart space, like we were talking about earlier, and makes it difficult to really open your heart to not only allow others to feel it and experience that depth of love, but it also holds you back and like prevents you from being able to receive as well.
Mm. Yeah, this is a huge thing that I work on with my clients is deepening intimacy. And when we're so stuck in our mind, which is usually what I refer to as the masculine is in the mind, logical, analytical, structured, organized, and we need those qualities, but when we're too far into that, we are very disconnected from anything below our neck, which is the feminine. We're disconnected from our hearts, from our wombs, from our intuition. Like we're disconnected from that. And so the more that we can connect with the feminine and deepen our sensitivity to what is happening in my body, what's happening in my heart, what am I actually feeling, then we can do that deeper healing to open our heart space and to have deep, authentic relationships. And on my journey, I share about this in the book, but I used to really struggle with my friendships with other women. I had a really hard time being in deep, intimate connection with other women because I was afraid of judgment. I was constantly comparing myself to them. I didn't feel like I fit in and had like all these blocks, but that was stuff that was conditioning from my mind. That's not truly who I am. And the more that I'm open to my feminine essence and to who I really am at my core, the more I've been able to soften and like share my emotions if something does come up for me in a friendship with a woman as a friend or in my intimate relationships, like the more I'm able to tap in and actually speak from my heart instead of from my mind.
Yeah, it's like that listening game. It's like being able to learn how to tune into your body and use your body as ears almost, right?
Hmm.
And not just use the ears that you have and the mind that you already know, but also like learning what your body's saying to you and how it's responding. And I know when I learned how to communicate with my body, it changed every other aspect of my life, of like you're talking about here, my intimate relationships, my platonic relationships, all of my relationships really in my life shifted and changed. And that's not just with people, that's with my business, that's with the way that I carry myself when I'm walking in public, right? My relationship with myself. There's so many things that I believe from my experience really do shift when you can drop into that feminine and when you can learn to listen and open your heart and be in that embodied state like you're speaking of.
Hmm. Yeah, I also want to add something here that comes up for a lot of people, this fear that if they're in their feminine, then they're going to be soft or they're going to be weak or they're going to be, what's that, submissive, like they're going to lose their power. And that couldn't be further than the truth. Like we've been taught and conditioned that feeling your feelings and your emotions is weak. We learn this for women and men. And when we don't actually process our emotions and we're not connected to our emotions, that's what leads to trauma. That's what leads to more pain. And it takes so much courage to be willing to feel your emotions and to be connected to your heart space and to go against the societal norms of how you should be and how you should behave and how you should express your emotions. Like it takes so much courage to do this deeper healing work. And it makes you stronger. It makes you more powerful when you do allow yourself to soften into the feminine.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the saying that I'm sure you've heard where if you don't feel it, you can't heal it. And if you don't really understand what that experience is like and you just push it under the rug, then like you're saying, we start to end up with all this trapped emotion, all these unprocessed experiences of trauma. And it leads to chronic health problems, it leads to mental health problems, it leads to a lot of challenges, not just in your body, but outside of your body too. And one of the things you were talking about earlier is this dance, right? This dance between that masculine and that feminine, and being able to flow between the two and recognize that you're never going to find that point where you're like, oh, yes, I'm balanced and we're going to stay here. No way. Sometimes it'd be easy for that to happen, but it's just not true, right? Like life keeps happening, the world keeps moving. And oftentimes that's going to shift you off balance. And then I think listening and being able to tune into your body is such a powerful tool to have so that you can realize when you're off balance what exactly you need to support yourself and where you need to step back into balance and how to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, it is such an ongoing practice. I mean, like I said, I've been studying this for a long time, and there was a point in I've had a lot of different breaking points where I've had to look at this and really be like, okay, what's out of alignment? What needs to go? What do I need to bring back in? And especially as a business owner, I've been an entrepreneur for over 10 years, and throughout that time there's been many times where I've gotten stuck in my masculine energy in the way that I'm working and in the way that I'm relating to my work, and it has led to a lot of dissatisfaction, focusing on things that aren't even that important, things that don't really fill me up, that don't light me up, and then a lot of stress. And when I find myself in that place where I am stressed, maybe I have like tension in my shoulders, or I feel tired a lot of the time, or I just don't feel excited about the work that I'm doing, that's always a sign that I get to come back to my feminine, which could look like bringing in more playfulness, coming back, checking into my intuition, like what parts of my business are lighting me up, what needs to go, what parts do I want to bring in that would bring me more joy. Also bringing in more yeah, like I said, play and curiosity, and coming back into my heart space of like, why did I start this business in the first place? And what is the whole vision and purpose of this? And when I reconnect to that, that's when I feel so much more alive and inspired. And it is such a dance because we can default to that more masculine edge. And similarly, if you have or someone who has experienced burnout, many of the women that I work with, they work in corporate environments, or they're teachers or nurses, and they've reached that burnout. And so then they go to the opposite side where they're so in their feminine because being in their masculine feels horrible because they don't have the capacity for that. And then when they're in their feminine and too much in their feminine, they feel unproductive, they feel ungrounded, they feel lost and confused about the direction that they want to go. So you can see how the pendulum can swing in these different ways. And we each individually can become aware of, okay, what are the signs when I'm starting to head in that direction? And how can I catch it sooner than when I hit those edges and have to do like a massive course recorrect? Right? How can I tune in and be paying attention to what my body's telling me and what I'm needing in order to not get to that place of being completely out of balance. And life will throw us stuff too, like you can be paying attention and then something happens in a relationship or something happens in a business or something happens in your family, and it kind of like shifts us into one or the other. And it's not something that we can necessarily fully control, but we can keep paying attention to it and keep nurturing and being mindful of when we're going too far in one direction.
A few weeks ago, I saw one of your stories on Instagram and I paused for a moment. I was like, yes, I loved it. And it was a story where you were dancing. And dance is one of the things that you and I both have in common that we just absolutely love. And it was you dancing because you recognized that you were so in your masculine energy and stepping into that dance to step more into your feminine energy before your partner arrived at your house or before you
Mhm.
spent time with your partner. And I had this moment where I was like, ah, yes, like for you and for me, because sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in that masculine doing. And it can be challenging too to like hit that pause button, come to the recognition first that like, oh, I am here, and then realize what it is that you need to do to create shift and change. And so I'm curious, when you're working with clients that are brand new to this, that are still deeply in that masculine, I'm doing so much, I'm tired, I'm maybe getting to that burnout place. What are some of the first few things that you support them with understanding so that they can recognize, learn how to do that listening, and then start to shift towards that feminine?
I love this question. And this kind of comes back to what I started talking about before is people are like, okay, I understand conceptually these concepts, but like, how do I be more in my feminine? And that's really why I wrote The Feminine Way, which is not about being in your feminine. It's about creating integration between these two energies. But the first step to that I always come back to for myself and for my clients is having a daily devotion practice, having a practice each and every day where you are creating space to connect with your authentic self on a soul level. So usually this happens in the morning. I also know if people are, moms or you have shift work, like it might not always happen first thing in the morning, but really taking the space for yourself 5 to 10 minutes a day to start with and finding ways that allow you to connect with yourself on a heart and a soul level. This is where the deep listening begins, because if we're constantly doing and we're avoiding our emotions and we're avoiding listening to our intuition, we're not going to be able to hear these subtle signs that we're heading in an imbalanced direction. So, having this time each day, having a daily devotion practice, devotion is different to discipline. Devotion comes from this heart centered place of like, how do I want to feel? What do I want to create in my life? Like, what am I deeply devoted to from a really heart centered place? And when we show up on a daily basis for our practices, be that meditation, journaling, affirmations, it could be walking in nature, reading scripture, reading prayer, whatever your form of devotion looks like, where it allows you to connect with yourself on a soul level, that's where the process begins. That's where we start to deepen into who we really are instead of like what the external world wants us to be. And from that place, we can start to hear the whispers of our intuition, the whispers of our soul that are going to guide us in the direction of our highest alignment. So, deepening devotion is the first feminine code. It is the first principle that we come back to over and over again. And the second piece that I'd love to offer is anything that you can do that helps you to get out of your mind and into your body. So we have many different modalities, embodiment practices that you can work with. Leah, like you said, you and I really love dancing. We love, moving our bodies. And again, that doesn't have to look like this professional dancer. It doesn't have to look choreographed. A lot of people are like, well, I'm not a good dancer. And it's like, cool, you don't have to be a good dancer. You literally have to close your eyes and put on some music and let your body do its thing. Like, get out of the idea that it has to look good, right? And get into the what does it feel like when I'm moving my body? So that's one beautiful way that we can connect to our feminine essence is through dance, through movement, anything that connects you to your creativity too. So if you like to get into flow state by getting into doing, art or playing an instrument or whatever your form of expression is, that's also going to help you to get out of your mind and into your body. And then breath work, yoga, these are all different practices that really allow us to drop into the physical body, which is where our feminine essence lives.
Thank you for sharing all those. Yeah, with my experience in all of them, um, it's definitely each one of those so important to be devoted and have your devotional time every day. And even if you don't have the 10, 15 minutes that you're used to, and you have 2, 3 minutes, like dropping into yourself and practicing the practice of showing up in that devotion. And I
Mhm.
think oftentimes, like when I'm working with clients, oh, I didn't have time for that today. And I was like, well, did you have a minute? Did you have 2 minutes? Can you connect with your breath? Can you shake it off a little bit? It's like you can always make time, even if it's 30 seconds. And recognizing that it's not just getting it done, it's the act of showing up for the thing. And I love all of the recommendations that you are making because um, even one of these alone, I think, is enough to create significant change in someone's life.
Mhm. Yeah, I've been working with a couple women who are teachers, and one of my clients, she has been a teacher. I can't remember how long, but like 15 years or something. And she came to me because she is feeling super stressed out and it's manifesting in so many different ways. And we literally started with her daily devotion practice. And she needs to be at school at 6 a.m., I think, to prepare for students. And she's getting up early and taking her 5 to 10 minutes to do her meditation. And it is the first school year of her career where she's not stressed out of her mind, and where she's not like hating her job, because it is being a teacher, being a nurse, being, taking care of others. It's a lot. And so, like, starting the day by tuning in and saying, like, I'm worth taking this time for myself, and I'm prioritizing this time for myself. And when we do that, like, it reorients our energy and our focus for the rest of the day. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, even if I do my morning practices, like, sometimes I feel out of alignment throughout the day. And it's like, yeah, of course, things are going to happen. Like, we have to tune back in and reconnect at times, but that's like an incredible starting point that can literally transform everything.
And also to be able to recognize that you're finding yourself out of alignment or increasing your experience of stress throughout the day, like that alone is great recognition so that you can start to create change.
Hmm. Yeah, totally.
How awesome that your client is moving through a school year without stress. I feel like that's like a huge deal for a teacher.
So huge. Yeah, I'm so proud of her. And yeah, it just really lights me up to see. I know how much these concepts and this, way of living have transformed my life. And then to see the ripple effect and to see how deeply it resonates, and how women are actually able to integrate this into their lives, and then how it transforms them on like a deep soul level. It's so powerful, and it's such an honor to witness, truly.
That was going to be my next question was as you've stepped into more of this embodiment of not just your feminine but this balance of your masculine and feminine, how has your experience of life shifted and changed? And my second part of that question is with that, how has writing your book deepened that change and that experience?
Yeah. I mean, how has it changed my life? It really has been such a process of coming home to myself, to who I truly am, and living as that version of myself, which, when we are living in alignment with our true authentic selves, there is so much more capacity for joy, for pleasure, for aliveness, and for deep soul connection with life, like life itself. And increasing my capacity to actually feel all of life, like feel the pain and feel the pleasure, like that gives me so much more variety in my life than where I was before, which was usually in this really negative self-talk space, in this depressed state, and not really accessing the highs, but also kind of being in this life where it was just like kind of going through the motions and being like, there has to be more than this. Like, this can't be it. And struggling with a lot of physical health symptoms too, chronic health symptoms that have significantly improved. So, yeah, I feel like it's allowed me to experience life a lot more to the fullest, and also to be in service in a greater capacity because I'm no longer in that space of feeling like I'm depleted and depressed and struggling all of the time. Like when I was in that space, I didn't have the capacity to be creative and write my book and to record my podcast and to show up for my clients from a full cup. Like it just wasn't possible. And lastly, I'll share in my relationships. When I started this journey, I was married, I was in my mid 20s, and I was really unhappy and felt really unfulfilled in that relationship. And the level of intimacy and depth that I'm able to experience with my partner now because of this journey that I've been of, because knowing how to understand my own feminine energy and how to kind of like do that dance with my partner too. Like I, I'm I'm in true awe of what's possible in the depth of both emotional and physical intimacy because of this work. So I think that answers your first question. Um, and yeah, did you want to ask anything else before we dive into the book?
Um, no, I think that you one thing that I would like to add here for those of you that don't know Amy. Amy is talking about being in a marriage in her mid 20s, and she had a moment where she recognized that this was just not bringing her joy and lighting her up. And it was that marriage that you chose to leave, correct? That was really the catalyst for so much of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it took me about 2 or 3 years from the time that my intuition was speaking to me, sharing that not only was the marriage not in alignment, but like the lifestyle that I was living and the life that I was creating was not in alignment. And eventually my physical and my mental health, like really came screaming to me. And that's when I decided eventually to take that leap and to, yeah, make the hardest decision in my life. And also the decision that really was the catalyst for who I am today.
And it's opened the space to allow all the things that are currently there to be.
Yeah. Thank you for honing in on that aspect. It's been quite the journey.
It's been an honor witnessing you, even though it hasn't been too long that we've known each other, but it's truly been an honor witnessing you on that journey and into writing this book because of it. And so I'd love to dive a little bit into the book and your why behind the book. And yeah, let's start there.
hmm Yeah, I mean, my why is just seeing like my personal world change around me and seeing the lives of thousands of women who listen to my podcast and my clients, like seeing the transformation happening over and over and over again. And I was like, all right, like I want this information and I want this wisdom to be shared with as many people as possible. And when I was younger, I not when I was really young, but in school, I definitely found that like my strongest point was writing. It was one of the ways that I like to express myself. And I didn't know that I was going to write a book one day. And I think, yeah, the deeper that I've gotten into my connection with my purpose and the reason why my soul is here, it's like this was one of the mediums that came through to be able to share this body of work. And I've been teaching these codes, these feminine codes that I talk about in the book. I've been teaching them for years now, and they came to me when I was traveling in Tulum, and I was very much in my own, what you would call like my own surrender experiment, like Michael A. Singer, for those of you who have read that book. And if you haven't, I highly recommend it. But I was on this journey where I was nomadic, and I was had my stuff in storage, and I was, didn't know where my next location was going to be. And I was working from various different places in the world, my computer and my coaching business. And I was in Tulum at the time in Mexico, and I was riding my scooter back from the beach, and I remember just like feeling the most deep connection to my feminine energy that I've ever felt before. Like I felt the sun beaming on my skin and the wind blowing my hair, and I just had this like almost like orgasmic feeling of, oh my God, like this is life, like this is living. I feel so alive. And for so long, I didn't feel that way. And so it was on that ride home where I started to get these messages and like, oh, what are the codes that have helped me to like access this? Like, how am I feeling this way? And what has led me here? And that's when these different codes starting to come through and the names of them and how I wanted to teach them. Like it was in that embodied lived experience. And so, yeah, it took me a couple years from that point. And um, when I moved to Asheville here in North Carolina, which was also like a huge intuitive leap, I've been here for about 2 years now. It was maybe the week after that I got here that I actually started writing. And so it's been about a two year process, and it has been such a dance of the masculine and feminine. A lot of people might think that writing a book is a very feminine thing. You're just like in your creative zone and you've got all the ideas coming through, but really it takes that masculine structure and that commitment of showing up to your writing practice, even when you don't feel like it, even when that voice inside of your head is like, giving you all the excuses of why you shouldn't or why it's not going to be good enough. Like you just keep showing up. So yeah, it was definitely a deepening of this practice of like devotion to my mission and also like structure, like showing up for this process.
Beautiful. What a journey you've been on.
Mm.
I know that when you dive deeper into writing and getting your thoughts and your all the things that we're talking about now right down on paper, and when you teach it, and I think through writing a book, it's a very widespread way of sharing your teachings. And what I do know is that through teaching, it leads you to embody even more deeply the experience and the knowledge that you are sharing. And so I'm curious how writing this book has deepened your understanding of being able to do and dance, I should say, in both of these energies.
Hmm. Yeah, I think like when I tune into who I am today and like over these last 2 years, who I've become, I think one of the biggest reasons why I was called to Asheville is to live in nature and to be surrounded by nature. And that offers deeper connection to my soul and my greatest vitality. But, when I feel into how I feel on a regular basis, it's not that I feel blissfully happy all of the time. Like that's not what the reality is, but what I do feel is a deep sense of peace and contentment of knowing who I am and of, you know, really understanding what are the things and what needs to happen in my life in order for me to be the fullest expression of myself and to live my life in a way that feels deeply true to me. And that has only deepened through writing this book. This book has just deepened my teachings and deepened my conviction around like how impactful this work is because I keep feeling it in my own body and my own lived experience. So I would say it's been mostly a deepening in that way.
Mm. Yeah, I can imagine so.
Mm.
And with this book, who is it that you're calling in to read it?
Hmm. I'm calling in anyone, specifically women, but I do see so much value in this information being shared with men as well, but specifically women who are craving more aliveness, more pleasure, more radiance, more vitality. If you want to live your life to the fullest and be the most expanded version of yourself and you maybe have struggled with depression or anxiety or chronic health issues like and you're ready to be on this journey of coming home to yourself in this deep way, then this book was written for you.
Sounds to me like the majority of people could probably use this in some way, shape, or form to benefit their lives.
Yes, that is my wish. That is my vision is for this book to get into the hands of whoever needs it the most. And um, yeah, I feel like we're all at various points on our own healing journeys, and that this can definitely enhance wherever you're at. There's something in this book for you.
And I know that women are who are listening are sitting there and they're like, yeah, I can totally resonate. Like I probably might be interested in this book. Let me check it out.
Mhm.
And for any of the men that are listening, how do you see this book supporting them in their feminine way?
Yeah, I see it in a few different ways. I see it being a guide for you to understand women better, to understand the feminine in yourself and within others. I see this as an opportunity to connect more deeply to your heart, to deepen your intimacy in your relationships, to live a life of truth and meaning. And as women are rising, the feminine is rising, but I see women really expanding their consciousness right now, and so many women stepping into their power. Like, we need men to be doing their work too. And I know that if you're listening to this podcast, you're on your path and you're doing that. And for the feminine to feel safe, she needs a masculine container. She needs a man who can hold her. And the only way that a man can actually hold a woman in her full feminine expression and her full feminine range is if you know how to connect with your own emotions on a deep level. You can't be that safe container for others if you haven't gone there yourself. So, my invitation is that you are doing your own work to go there. And in doing so, you can be a safe space for the feminine to expand and to grow as well.
Mm, so beautifully said, and deeply resonating with what it is that you're expressing here, because you know there are men out there doing their work and we need more. And as I know you've been on a journey within relationships, it's hard to find a man that can fully hold a woman in that feminine space. And it's can be challenging to find a man who is capable of really tapping into his emotions and the understanding of himself, so that the female and the woman feels safe being able to be in that full expression of herself. That's something for me in my personal life that I've navigated a lot of challenge around, and also just recognizing that they're just not there yet. But I'm really glad that this book is here to support men in being able to go deeper into that realm, being able to tap in deeper to their emotional selves, because not everybody has really amazing men's groups around them. That's something that I think is popping up more around the world, and we're starting to see gatherings of men in more conscious space be able to hold space really for one another to be in that emotional realm and know that it's okay to be there. I think a lot of men are conditioned to think that, oh, if I connect with my emotions, then I am weak. And that's just not the case. And in reality, and I'll speak from my perspective, any man that is willing and ready to step into his emotions, that to me shows me that that is a strong man.
Mm, yeah, 100%. And I also want to continue shifting the narrative around this because I do believe that there are a lot of really, like you said, there are men doing their work and there are a lot of really good men out there. And I think as women, we also get to really honor the journey that they are on, because it is similarly like the effects that the patriarchy and the conditioning that we have been exposed to as women, men have also been exposed to that, and they are unlearning and repatterning and reprogramming similar to how we are. Like, we've all been conditioned in a similar way, and I talk a lot about that in the book. Like, how did we even get here to this place of such confusion and such disconnection? So I know that there's incredible men out there and they're doing their work, and I really see some big shifts happening, and I'm excited to offer this book as another tool and resource to those who are wanting to go deeper into this work.
I do too. And I think that also another thing to note here is that it's not just partnerships, right? It's not just like romantic relationships that are going to be enhanced by diving deeper into this feminine work. It's also your ability to connect with community around you and be able to step into a space with people that are so deeply loving, that are so deeply supportive, that can really like see you and hear you and understand you and fully support you because you've opened yourself to allow them to do so. I know that as I've gone deeper into doing my work, it's led me to some of the most incredible people I've ever met. And that I'm so grateful to know you being one of those individuals. And it's allowed me to find a family of friends that show up for me always and in every way they possibly can. And before stepping into that work, I didn't experience that level of vulnerability. I didn't experience that level of openness. And I know that as even for my clients, as I watch and witness them step into that, they start to see that there's a different resonance that is welcoming of them and that they want to welcome in, that allows them to drop those walls and feel held and supported in that community. And so for those of you that are listening, I just want you to know that that is possible for you. You can experience a community that shows up for you and that you feel loved and supported and seen by, that you can fully trust. And like we're talking about, that outward experience that you're seeking or that you're desiring or that you're ready for, that's going to start within yourselves. It's going to start by looking deep within you.
Sure is. That's where it begins, that personal liberation. And I'm so, yeah, so happy to hear that I think that's also what happens as we deepen into our feminine essence and our true authentic self, is that we start to magnetize the people, the opportunities, the experiences with so much more ease, and it's not as difficult to cultivate these types of connections because it is a reflection of who we are and how we're showing up in the world.
It's so true.
Mm.
So for our listener, where can they find the book? When is the release date? And yeah, where can they purchase?
Yeah. So the pre-orders for The Feminine Way are going to be going live on October 23rd. And then after that, they will be available. The official launch date is November 11th, which is a super magical date. For both of those, you can go to my website, amynatalieco.com/The Feminine Way, and you can order the book there. And one of the things that I want to share about the book is that I have included some guided meditations and embodiment practices as part of this book. And the reason why I've done that is because that is so much of how we connect with our bodies. And it is really the feminine way of learning, instead of just reading or listening and like cognitively understanding these practices. It's actually doing them and feeling them and noticing what comes up in your body. So I encourage you, if you are going to get the book, to also download the practices. When you get the book, there's a link in there to download the practices. So yes, go to my website, and then you can also find me on Instagram. You can find me at Amy Natalie Co. And in the link in my bio, you can find my podcast, the Feminine Frequency Podcast. And I also have a free guided morning ritual to support you in starting your feminine empowerment journey. So lots of different places to go. And yeah, if there's something that I shared in this episode that really resonated for you, I invite you to send me a personal message. I always love connecting personally with listeners. So please don't hesitate. And I invite you to reach out and send me a message on Instagram.
That was how we connected.
Yes. So glad you popped in my DMs.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for being here. It's such an honor to hold this space for you and just be in it with you, and excited to bring your book and watch the impact that it has to those around me, to those around you. And I will put all of your information in the show notes. If anyone's interested in easy access to Amy, you can check out the show notes there. It was amazing spending time with you today. Thank you for all your knowledge and your wisdom and the work that you've put in. And thank you for being a leader in this feminine way.
Thank you, my love.
Thank you, guys. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today and for continuing to opt in to your inner work. If you found value in this conversation, please share it on social media or with someone you know that values both healing and growth. And I'd also like to invite you to join the Holistic Healing Tribe. This is my private community full of self-healers who are on a mission to optimize their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Click the link in the show notes to join the tribe. And when you join, I'll send you my favorite things that have made the biggest impact on my health, my healing, and my growth. And finally, if you're anything like me and deeply care about seeing a more mindful approach to human evolution, please leave a review to help us reach more listeners and make a bigger impact on the world around you.